Hello, Team Meade. Today we have a very special guest with us, Chief of Child and Youth Services, Mr. Francisco Jamison. Mr. Jamison, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So, Mr. Francisco Jamison, mind if I call you Cisco?
Cisco's my dad. So that's how I got to be Fran. My dad and I have the same name. He's Francisco, so am I. But he goes by Francis for the most part, except for his friends who call him Cisco. So, you like your job?
I do like my job.
Let's just stick with Mr. Jamison for this.
Fair enough. So you mentioned your dad is also named Francisco. Are you a junior then?
Technically not, because he and I don't share the same middle name. So same first name, different middle names, not a junior, technically.
All right. So you are the Chief of Child and Youth Services. How long have you been in that role?
Oh, I think this is my 6th year as Chief of CYS. And as a matter of fact, you happen to be here interviewing me on my Franiversary. So,
really?
Yes, today is the 27th year I've been a federal employee. And before that, this is my 38th year as being a member of Child and Youth Services. I started off in T-ball many years ago. So, yeah, today's the Franiversary.
Well, happy Franiversary.
I appreciate it.
I promise we didn't plan that, but
Patent pending, by the way, Franiversary.
It worked out. Yeah, so that long, 6 years as the chief, and we haven't ran you out yet, huh?
Not yet. Close some days. Some days it's been close, but no, not yet, not yet.
Yeah. And so you've been here for 27 years, you said. What made you decide to work for CYS?
That's a great question. Actually, I was just saying to you that I grew up in the program, so I was a military brat. My father served for over 20 years as an Army soldier, retired E8. And I loved Child and Youth Services. I was one of those kids that lived at the center. From the minute they opened to the minute they closed, I enjoyed every minute of it. I loved the camaraderie, the fellowship. I loved the activities, the field trips. And the year that I became a member of the organization officially as an employee, I actually was training to be a lifeguard. And the center was going to close where we were living at Fort Story. Very small community, unlike Fort Meade, and they were going to have to close the center because they didn't have enough staffing. And so I felt like my brother, who's about 4 years younger than me, wasn't going to get the same kind of a upbringing that I got in the organization because they were going to close. So I decided to call the CPAC and see if I could work there, even though I was not yet 18 years old. I was almost 16 at the time. But at that time, there was a loophole that allowed me to be hired, which they since have closed up.
Yeah, things have changed.
Things have changed. So I was a very young teenager who started out in the organization, and that really was my thought process at the time. It was a summer job. My brother and his friends needed someone to be there to help open the center, keep it open. There was no other motivation than that. And then from there, it just, it snowballed. One day I became a regular employee, and then a lead, and then a director, and here I am.
So you mentioned being an Army brat. How was that growing up?
So, as an Army brat, I'm familiar with both sides of the coin. You either, in my dad's day, were this military brat, and we say brat lovingly, who traveled a lot, or you were the one that didn't move and stayed, and we were the latter. So all my friends moved every 2 or 3 years. My dad did all of his traveling before Bobby and I were born. So he did all his overseas assignments before I was born. So we lived at Fort Eustis, which is in Virginia, and in Newport News, Virginia, for almost 9 years. And then we moved from Fort Eustis to Fort Story, 45 minutes away, and lived there for 10 more years. So in 19 years, we moved twice. All my friends had the exact opposite. I've got a friend, Steyer, who moved every 2 years between 2 years old and graduating high school. So I can only relate to it insofar as having people leave me not having to be the one that had to leave. So in a way, I'm a civilian living in the military, if that makes sense, because I stayed at those places longer and everybody else kind of left. So that makes sense.
And did you go to college at all?
I did. My college background's a little different. I started at community college, and then I went to Southern Illinois University. So Southern Illinois is my alma mater. My bachelor's degree is in my Bachelor of Science degree is in Workforce Education and Development, and that's an adult training program. So I work technically better with adults than I do with children. I did a lot of coursework in early childhood as a supplement to that, but my basic post-secondary education is in workforce education and development, which I think as someone who works for me, you can probably tell. I enjoy a lot of the mentoring, teaching, training, taking a dry erase board and working through steps with people. It's something that I like to do. And I found myself loving children, but actually being more motivated to help the people who work with children than working with children myself anymore. I did that for a long time, and then I broke into the adult part of it later. This is your interview, not my show, and I don't want to turn it into work, but I just wanted to say, earlier when you asked me about working through the organization to where I am now, I just want my team to know that I'm not anybody special. What I've accomplished in my life is because I have a passion for it, and I have a family that supports me, but that could be you, that could be anybody else who's watching this. So if you believe it, you can achieve it, and just keep working it. And I won't be here forever. I do enjoy working at Fort Meade. I enjoy being the director of Child and Youth Services, and 300 people rely on me, and I rely on them. But there'll be a day where I'll do something different, and my goal now is to get you and the rest of the managers to be one step ahead of where you are today, and somebody has to succeed. Why not you?
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah, and we hope you stay for a very long time. But any advice for the next Chief of CYS?
Yeah, don't wear those shoes. No, you gotta put them up for the people to see now.
And the socks.
Yes, we love the socks going on. Advice. Man, I was part of the organization even before I got this job, and even though I was, it still was a surprise to me how many moving parts it really is. It really is a aircraft carrier. It's not a dinghy. It's a huge, if you sit and you think about it, and Jim Day says this a lot to me and some other people, but when you sit still and think about it, there's a couple people on this garrison who have just huge responsibilities, and I just happen to be one of them. I mean, when you're talking about Colonel Taylor as the provost marshal and his responsibility level with DES and gate guards and fire departments and stuff, that's just astronomical. And Colonel Taylor, Colonel Michael over with Kimbrough, obviously Colonel Nyland with the whole garrison, and Mr. Peterson and Mr. Miles. But I'm just saying, there's people here who have lots of responsibility. So I would just say to my eventual successor, I'm not dying. Remember, it's a large organization. There's a lot of moving parts. You're going to need a team to do it. There's no I in this at all. I mean, seriously, 300 people and 1,000 plus kids is, you got to have parents that support you and staff that support you, and certainly children that are happy, and you've got to find yourself accessible. I would only say that you need to be prepared for the unexpected.